In a village hidden between thick trees and endless green hills, there flowed a strange river called Omi Eph. It twisted like a sleeping snake through the land, calm by day, but restless when the sun slept. The elders said no one should walk near its banks after dusk, not even to fetch water. But as with all warnings, time had worn them thin, and most believed the stories were just to scare children. People lived simple lives in Ibro village, planting yams, drying cassava, and laughing around fires. But one thing always stood out: the silence near the river. Birds never sang there. Frogs didn't croak. Even the wind bent around it, as if afraid. Everyone avoided Omi Eph, except for one person, a young girl named Priscilla. She had long legs, eyes like burnt honey, and questions that never ended. She wasn't like the others. Where others feared, she explored. She loved stories, especially the old ones about the river. But what made her curious wasn't the tales of fish or floods. It was the story no one told. The story about the disappearances. You see, every 7 years, someone vanished in Ibro, always near the water, and always without a sound. No footprints, no broken branches, just silence. The villagers whispered behind closed doors, saying it was the curse of the singing water, but no one dared explain what that meant. Priscilla's older brother, Michael, was the last one to vanish. 7 years ago, he had gone to fetch palm fruit near the water and never returned. Priscilla had been only 6 then. Now, nearly 13, she had made up her mind. She would find out what really happened. The strange thing was, her dreams had changed. For the past few weeks, she had heard music in her sleep. Gentle singing, like wind through a flute. A woman's voice, beautiful but sad. It always ended the same way, with a splash and silence. When she woke, her pillow would be wet, though the night was dry. On the morning of the 7th year's end, the village woke to a heavy stillness. The air was thick. The sun, though shining, looked pale. Chickens refused to leave their coops. And Priscilla. She was missing. Her mother called. Her father ran from hut to hut, but no answer came. Her sandals were found near the edge of Omi Eph, facing the water, as though she had walked in. The villagers began to murmur. Some prayed. Others wept. A few packed their things. The elders gathered under the sacred tree, their faces dark with fear. One of them, old Papa Jonah, whispered something none wanted to hear. The song has returned. By evening, thunder grumbled in the sky, though no rain fell. And deep beneath the river's skin, something moved. Not fish, not frog, but a shadow with long hair and fingers like waterweed. It watched. It waited. Far beneath, where sunlight never reached, a glowing necklace rested on a stone shelf. Michael's necklace. And now, beside it, Priscilla's silver hairpin. The villagers closed their windows that night, locked their doors, burned bitter herbs. But in the silence between the winds, if you listened closely, you could hear it, the sound of a girl humming. Not in fear, but in longing. And the river smiled. The village of Iboro was never the same after Priscilla vanished. The market stayed quiet. The drums stopped. Even the goats stopped bleating. It was as if the land itself had swallowed its breath, waiting for something. Days passed, and the river grew louder. It no longer whispered. It gurgled, groaned, and sang when no one was watching. The villagers spoke less and prayed more. Some even tied charms to their doors, using bitter leaves and red cloth, hoping to block out whatever had taken her. But deep beneath the surface of Omi Eph, something had changed. Priscilla was not dead. She was awake, and she was no longer in the world she knew. She opened her eyes in a place with no sky, no trees, just glowing water and tunnels made of coral and stone. Strange lights moved around her, blinking like fireflies. Her legs felt heavy, her arms lighter than air, her voice gone. She tried to speak, but only bubbles came out. Around her were others, young people, boys and girls, with empty eyes and stiff faces. They floated, unmoving, like they had been there for years. And above them all was her, the woman from the dreams. Skin like river clay, hair long and green like the moss on old stones, eyes that never blinked. She hovered just above the coral throne, singing to herself in a tongue no human remembered. Her voice was both beautiful and terrifying. She was a mermaid, but not the kind from picture books or pretty tales. She was ancient, angry, and powerful. This was Mummy Alira, a spirit who had once protected Omi Eph, worshipped by the first people of Iboro. But when the villagers stopped offering gifts, stopped telling her stories, and dared to build dams and dig near her waters, her heart turned cold. She didn't want revenge. She wanted memories. So every 7 years, she chose one soul to carry the stories back to her, one voice to join her song beneath the water. That's why Michael had vanished. That's why others had too. And now, Priscilla was next. But Priscilla was different. She wasn't afraid. Even without her voice, her eyes burned with questions. She moved when others floated. She listened when others slept. And one day, she found something hidden beneath the coral shelves, a broken mirror wrapped in vines. When she touched it, something strange happened. Memories. She saw Mummy Alira's past. A time when people sang to her at the riverbanks, offered baskets of fruit, and danced on the full moon. A time when she protected the village, keeping away floods, snakes, and evil spirits. But slowly, the songs stopped. The fruit offerings ended. People forgot. And Mummy Alira, once full of joy, began to crumble inside. Her tears became storms. Her voice, a curse. Now, trapped in that underwater chamber, Priscilla understood. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was grief. The mermaid didn't just want to steal. She wanted to be remembered. And that, Priscilla decided, was how she would escape. Under the glowing waters of Omi Eph, time moved differently. Days felt like minutes. Minutes felt like years. But Priscilla never stopped thinking. While the others floated in silence, trapped in some kind of watery sleep, she explored the coral caverns when the mermaid spirit wasn't watching. She didn't know how long she had, but something inside her whispered, "Move now, or be forgotten forever." She couldn't scream, she couldn't speak, but her thoughts were loud and growing stronger. And that broken mirror she had found? It was more than it seemed. When she held it, images swirled before her eyes. Stories from long ago. The very first song ever sung to Mummy Alira. The day the river spirit first rose from the water. The face of the first child who brought her a gift. Priscilla saw it all, and the river seemed to remember too. Mummy Alira, however, was watching. Though the spirit never spoke, her eyes followed every move. That night, as the other trapped souls floated in a deep sleep, the mermaid circled Priscilla slowly, her hair drifting like seaweed. Then she did something she hadn't done in 100 years. She reached out and touched the girl's forehead. A vision struck. Priscilla saw fire, villagers throwing charms into the river, shouting at the water to leave them alone. She saw the day a fisherman broke a stone shrine near the riverbank, and she saw the pain in Alira's heart, thick as oil. That was when the spirit changed. That was when the taking began. But Priscilla also saw something else, Michael. Her brother was still there. His body floated in a chamber deeper below, half asleep but alive. His necklace still glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. He hadn't forgotten. He had been waiting. The river didn't steal randomly. It took those who heard the songs, those who still believed. Priscilla now had a choice. She could let the pain win and become one more silent soul, or she could awaken the river's true song. She took the mirror again and pressed it to her chest. Memories surged through her, the old tales her grandmother told, the village dances, the songs they once sang by the moonlight. She focused, forcing those memories into the water. Suddenly, the cavern began to shake. Not with anger, but recognition. The other children stirred, their eyes fluttered, their lips trembled. Michael's chest moved. Mammy Alira screamed, not in fury, but in sorrow. The song of memory had returned, and with it, something she had forgotten: kindness. Priscilla couldn't speak, but her heart spoke louder than words. The spirit's body shimmered. Her long hair turned silver. Her claws softened into hands. She reached for the mirror, and it dissolved into light. Then, for the first time, Alira sang, not a curse, but a lullaby. The glowing walls faded. The tunnels dimmed. One by one, the trapped souls floated upward, rising, 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 until all that remained was silence. And then, breath. Priscilla opened her eyes on the riverbank. Wet, shivering, alive. Beside her lay Michael, coughing, his eyes wide. The villagers had gathered. They gasped. They wept. They couldn't believe what they saw. Priscilla had returned. But something followed her out of the river, and the real test was yet to come. The village of Ibero stood still as Michael and Priscilla sat dripping beside the river, breathing as if they had returned from another world, which, in truth, they had. No one moved at first. Even the wind seemed afraid to touch them. Then their mother screamed, not in fear but in relief, and ran to them, falling to her knees, holding both children like treasures long buried. The elders called it a miracle. Some whispered it was a warning. Others believed it was the end of the curse. But Priscilla knew better. That night, while others celebrated, she sat awake by the fire. Her fingers touched the spot on her chest where the mirror had vanished. She didn't remember everything, but she remembered enough. The river had not just returned her, it had changed her. Something had followed her home. At midnight, the river sang again, softly, like a cradle song. And in the water's reflection, Priscilla saw her own face, but behind it, the pale outline of Mommy Alira. Not angry, not sad, just watching. The next morning, strange things began to happen in Iboro. Frogs gathered near the huts, croaking in strange rhythms. Birds flew in perfect circles above the village and refused to land. The water pots filled themselves without being touched. And in the heart of the river, a small silver stone rose from the water, smooth and round, glowing faintly. The elders called a meeting under the sacred tree. They argued. Should they build a fence around the river? Should they leave the village? Should they pretend none of it happened? But one voice rose above them all. Priscilla's. She told them the truth, not with her mouth, but with her heart. In a voice only the wind and water understood. She knelt before the silver stone and placed a bowl of fruit beside it. Then she sang. Not a full song, just a hum. But the air shifted. The river stilled. And far beneath the surface, the spirit listened. From that day on, the village changed. Each full moon, the people gathered at the river's edge. They sang, they told stories, they left gifts. And the river sang back, not with fear, but with joy. Children no longer disappeared. The waters stayed clear, crops grew taller, and the frogs, they kept singing. Priscilla never spoke of what she had seen beneath the water, nor did Michael, but sometimes, at night, they would sit by the river and hum the same tune, the tune of a spirit who had been forgotten, until a girl remembered. But in the deep corners of Omi Eph, where light never touched, one last thing remained, the mirror. Cracked now, and half buried in coral, it reflected the faces of all who had been taken, all who had been returned. And one more. A face no one had seen yet. A girl with eyes like the tide, waiting for the world above to forget again. Because in the heart of every story, every river, every silence, something waits. And the river never truly gives back what it takes. It only shares it for a while. Subscribe, like, and comment for more fun stories.